Hey, how you doing again? You getting tired of seeing me? A little continuation of what I said earlier concerning, no-show nationals, Sanford not showing up. As I said, besides hearing quite a few things during my absence on here for a few months, I've heard things for quite some time. But it's like they say, you save it for a rainy day. I have patience, all in good time. I'm going to let it rain a little bit again. There was a lot more to Sanford not showing up at the no-show nationals. And I got this right from someone even above Big Wilbur, organized it, promoted it. Although he left things in the hands of Wilbur that. Anyway, we all know what happened. It was a fucking joke. But this came right from someone that dealt directly with Sanford. Cannot be denied, cannot be disputed. Once upon a time, I don't know if they still do it today, but once upon a time it was big, especially when you got into the later part of the 60s, especially when you started to get into fuel cars. Fuel cars began to attract crowds, and they had what was called match racing, where a few guys made a very good career out of being match racers. They weren't really competitive in NHRA, IHRA, but they became what was called showmen. They put on a show, they put on a spectacle. Two guys that come to mind: Jungle Jim Lieberman and TV Tommy Ivo. I used to watch reruns of Leave It to Beaver when I was young. He was on. Leave It to Beaver was one of Beaver's friends on there. And he was an innovator. He was famous for his multi-engine cars, four-wheel drive cars, doing his four-wheel smoky show burnouts. But he was not a real serious competitive racer on the NHR trail, as it was called. Same thing with Lieberman. Lieberman's gimmick was he had Jungle Pam with big titties, hot pants, go-go boots. He bounced around with no bra. You know what I mean? And they put on a show. They were both famous for their fire burnouts. I think in their careers, both of them combined only won 2 NHRA events in fuel. Jim in Funny Car, and Ivo in Top Fuel Dragster. And Ivo was an innovator, an experimental car, experimental racer. And people showed up just to see his cars. Like people showed up to see Jim do his fire burnouts at night. And they used to have it up at New England Dragway. They called them ringers. They'd bring in a ringer, someone knew who they were. But they were known as more of a showman than a real racer. They didn't see them at every NHRA event, IHRA event. They were paid, and paid well. They made a pretty good career at it, although Ivo made a lot of his money from his engineering and innovation. That trickled down to other racers, and, he made his money and his knowledge and innovation that, a lot of it got watered down, but it became practical in a lot of applications for other racers that improved the performance of their cars. And then you get into the show car aspect of things. You go to, custom car shows, you see multi-engine cars. These cars, they're not going to win, any top fuel event at a fucking racetrack. But they look cool, they're different, they attract attention. That's what it's about. Lieberman's career got kind of cut short. What I understand, he used to like to drink a lot. But his big gimmick was Jungle Pam. He got paid well to show up at an event. All day be signing autographs, Jungle Pam be walking around showing off her, titties the way Miss Titty Nipples does, Except Jim had a nice car. Miss Titty Nipples got a fucking Coleman mini bike and some fucking junk too, 4-door fucking Valiant or some shit like that with a slant 6. How's the progress coming along on that, by the way? And they were match racers. And they'd find some local yokel, some nobody that had a really non-competitive car, but it was a fuel car. A top fuel dragster, a funny car. They used to have it up in the Women's Dragway. And they pulled these guys out of a crowd. The local weekend racers that they don't really amount to much, but they have a car. And seeing two cars go down the track is a lot better than seeing one guy make a solo pass. And they call it, hey, listen, I'll pay you $200 to make a pass with Lieberman. I'll pay you $200 to make a pass with Ivo. You know what I mean? These guys know they're not going to win, but they show up because it looks good, two cars. And before their match race, they called it match race, and before their match race, Lieberman, Jim, they wait till it was dark. It looks better under the night sky, under the lights. They do their fire burn out. So it looks a lot better than a fucking bright afternoon, you know what I'm saying? And that's what these guys were. They were match racers. Lieberman's career got cut a little short, you know. From what I understand, the guy used to like to drink like a motherfucker, too. He was kind of a wild man. And he was killed like in 74. He was killed in the early 70s behind the wheel of his 1971 Corvette Stingray. He had a bus head on or some shit like that. But Ivo went on, you know, for many years. And Jim made his money while he lasted. And these are match races, you know, kind of like that movie, Two-Lane Blacktop I mentioned, my all-time favorite car movie. No script, no plot, no nothing. They just moved on from match race to match race, make money, move on, move on, move on. And a lot of that went on in that era. These two guys made a career out of match racing without really needing to be really competitive and needing to be fully active in the NHRA or IHRA. It worked out well for them. And I think there were a few others as well. Mo Downey at times was paid to show up at some little no-name event. They pay her big money, and she'd show up. They put her up against some local yokel with this Top Fuel dragster, and you know, she'd sign autographs all day just so people could meet her. You know what I mean? People could meet Jim. People could meet Ivo, and that was a popular thing. And I think Sanford puts himself in that same category. And I got this from the head honcho himself. Another big part of, you know, Sanford not showing up at the North Shore Nationals was I guess he thinks he had a name on the side of his car that would attract people. He had a big name in racing, like these guys did, in their own respect. You know, people are going to show up to see him. And he wanted a piece of the pie. He wanted a percentage of the gate that was taken in. He wanted to get paid to show up. I guess he thinks he's a big-time match racer, too. With a four-door fucking Coronet that wobbles its way down the track. I think even the best he's got that thing into is somewhere around maybe below 12. You know, with a shitload of laughing gas being pumped into that fucking thing. But that was also a big part of the reason why. Actually, the main reason why he didn't show up. He wanted to be paid. He felt he was so fucking important that without him, that event wouldn't take place. They needed him more than he needed them. And we know how things turn out. You know what I mean? And there were other issues too. You know, see, Sanford didn't want to talk about that. What he did say, from what I understand, on Alive, when he got kind of pressured on it, he said he'd probably get into trouble. Because he ran his mouth at a lot of fucking people. You know, like I say, in the core with my crew, you know, we got a little saying, you never let your mouth write a check your abilities can't cover. He runs his mouth a lot. Then he's going to stick his fucking tail up his fucking ass and run away like a fucking coward and make excuses. It's fairly obvious. He said, well, he didn't want to get into any trouble. He's already got enough trouble back in New York. He sets foot in New York. He still has warrants out for his arrest. He still has creditors he owes money to for his failed coffee shop and his other businesses. And, you know, the guy's neck deep in shit, plus he lost his license for life there. That's why he fucking hightailed it out of New York. Come on, let's get fucking real. You know, his chop shop activities, you know, forged titles, you fucking name it. This guy's as fucking crooked as they come. And he said, well, you know, he didn't want to be getting into fights in the pits. He heard, you know, people were mad at him, so he didn't want to start any trouble. No, he wouldn't have started trouble. He would have got the fuck beat out of him. He would have got the fuck beat out of him. But that wasn't his main reason. That's just what he said. The real reason was he felt he's such a fucking big world famous fucking guy. Even on his shop, on his door, he's got, wasn't it world global headquarters? Who the fuck around the world knows who he is? Hey, do me a favor, all you watching. Next time you go to a store, a supermarket or something, walk up to any random person and say, hey, you know Sanford? See what they tell you. Those of you that go to a local traction area where you race, racers, guys, crew chiefs, pits, hey, you know Sanford? See what they tell you. Find out how fucking famous he is. He's a fucking nobody. He's only a legend in his own mind. You know what I mean? But that's the main number one reason why he didn't show up. He felt he deserved to be paid to show up. He wanted a piece of the gate. He wanted a percentage of the profit, and no profit was made. They just about covered their expenses, and that was covered by the people that showed up and paid a fucking entrance fee, like I said in an earlier video. Nobody gave a fuck about wanting to go out of their way to go see that shit show. See junk. A man with titties on a fucking Coleman mini bike with water under the rear tire doing a fucking... Seriously. You save that shit for a traveling fucking carnival sideshow, you know what I mean? You don't promote that as a fucking hot rod drag racing event. But hey, it is what it is. It was what it was. See what happens with how much participation and how much people give a fuck about it this year. Time tells, as they always say. We will see. And then I heard a few other things, and I guess this is now the... Somebody told me, was it Kenny? You told me, Kenny Brackett. I guess Dallas has issues in this. Hey, we all have issues in our personal life, you know what I mean? We all do. You know, it's not a good thing for anybody. Him, I went through my personal issues. Earlier this year, the loss of my sister. No, you know, I lost Uncle Felix. And, you know, I'm sorry to hear that. But the AHRA, throughout its existence, has been a fucking joke and a failure.